Captain Dutas rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at the screen. For 3 nights straight, he had tracked the strange objects moving through the outer solar system. At first, he thought they were just asteroids. But asteroids didn't change direction. And they certainly didn't move in perfect formation. "Captain, you need to see this," called Han, his young radar operator. "The objects have increased speed. They're heading toward Earth." Tai rushed over, his coffee splashing on his blue Korean Space Force uniform. The blips on the radar were moving faster now, much faster than before. "Send the data to headquarters. Now." Tai's voice was calm, but his heart raced. After 15 years watching the stars from Korea's orbital platform, he knew this was what everyone had both hoped for and feared. First contact. 8 hours later, Admiral Kim stood before the United Nations Emergency Council. The room was packed with world leaders, many still in their nightclothes or travel-worn suits. "The objects will reach Earth orbit in less than 24 hours, she said, pointing to the projection behind her. "We count 37 vessels of various sizes. The largest is approximately 3 kilometers long." "Have they responded to our messages?" asked the Secretary General. Admiral Kim shook her head. "We've tried all frequencies, all known mathematical sequences. Nothing." Dr. Hannah Lee, Earth's leading expert on possible alien life, stepped forward. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her glasses. "We must consider the possibility that their methods of communication are completely different from ours," she said, "or that they simply don't wish to talk. What are our options if they're hostile?" The American president's question hung in the air like a bad smell. Admiral Kim straightened her back. "Limited. Our weapons systems weren't built to fight alien technology." Far above them, in the silent emptiness of space, Supreme Commander Krall observed the blue-green planet through the viewing membrane of his ship. His scaled skin reflected the glow from Earth as it turned slowly beneath them. "Primitive," he said to his second-in-command. "Their detection systems only noticed us 3 rotations ago. Their weapons are chemical-based. No proper shield technology." "The perfect harvest world," replied his officer, running a claw across the control surface. "Rich in water, minerals, and biological matter." Krall's mouthparts clicked with pleasure. The High Command chose well. "We will be rewarded greatly for securing such a prize." "And the natives?" Krall made a dismissive gesture with his upper limbs. "They'll resist, of course. They always do. But their fight will be brief." In a small apartment in Seoul, 6-year-old Joy looked up from her toys. Her father, Captain Ta, had been gone for days now. Her mother said he was busy with important work, but Ji could feel something was wrong. She walked to the window and looked up at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter tonight, and some of them were moving. Not like airplanes or satellites. Different. Ji pressed her small hand against the cool glass. She felt a strange buzzing in her head, like when she stood too close to the big power lines near her school. "Mom," she called, not taking her eyes off the moving lights. "The stars are talking." Her mother came to the window, phone in hand. The news was everywhere now. Strange ships in the sky. World leaders in emergency meetings. People were scared. "Those aren't stars, Ji," her mother said softly, pulling her daughter close. In the distance, sirens began to wail. On the command bridge of his station, Captain Ta watched as the alien fleet suddenly accelerated. For days they had moved slowly, methodically. Now they were breaking formation, spreading out around the planet in a pattern he recognized from military exercises. "They're deploying into attack formation," he said, reaching for the emergency broadcast button. "All stations, this is not a drill. I repeat, this is not." The first blast hit before he could finish. The station shook violently. Warning lights flashed red as the air filled with the screams of metal tearing and people crying out. Through the viewport, Tai watched as bright beams of energy shot from the alien ships toward Earth. The ambush had begun. Humanity's darkest hour and its greatest test had arrived. The sky turned bright with fire as the alien ships attacked Earth. Their weapons cut through military bases, power plants, and communication towers with ease. Around the world, people ran from their homes, looking up at the strange ships that brought death from above. Captain Tai held on to a broken pipe as his space station spun wildly. The first blast had torn through the main section, killing many of his crew instantly. Emergency lights flickered as he pulled himself to the communication center. "This is Captain Du Tai," he shouted into the radio. "The aliens are using some kind of energy weapon. Our shields have no effect. They're targeting military installations first." He plugged a data drive into the console, copying all sensor readings from the attack. If anyone survived this day, they would need to know what they were fighting against. Another blast hit the station. Tai was thrown across the room as the air began to rush out through a new hole in the wall. With his last strength, he grabbed the data drive and pulled himself toward the escape pods. In her underground command center, Admiral Kim watched as red dots appeared on the global map. Each dot was an attack site. There were hundreds now, spreading across every continent. "Seoul is under heavy attack," reported an officer. "Tokyo, New York, Moscow, London, all reporting massive damage. What about our counterattacks?" Kim asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. The weapons officer shook his head. "Our missiles can't lock on to their ships. Fighter jets are being shot down before they get close. Nothing is working." Admiral Kim closed her eyes for a moment. She had trained all her life for war, but not this kind of war. Not against an enemy with such advanced technology. "Get me all surviving military leaders on secure channels," she ordered. "We need to change tactics. If we can't fight them head-on, we'll fight them another way." Dr. Hannah Lee worked frantically in her lab as the building shook around her. The university had been hit twice already, but the basement labs were still intact. "Download everything," she shouted to her assistants. "All our research, all our data on the alien signals." A young researcher handed her a tablet. "Dr. Lee, look at these readings. The alien ships are giving off strange electromagnetic patterns." Hannah studied the numbers, her mind racing. There was something unusual here, something that might be important. "Every time they fire their weapons, there's a surge in a specific frequency range," she said, almost like. The ceiling cracked. Chunks of concrete fell onto the lab tables. "We have to go now," said the security guard, grabbing Hannah's arm. She quickly saved the data to a portable drive and stuffed it in her pocket. As they rushed toward the emergency exit, she couldn't stop thinking about those frequencies. There was a pattern there, maybe even a weakness. In Seoul, Jay huddled with her mother in a crowded subway tunnel. Hundreds of people had fled underground as the alien ships attacked the city above. The ground shook with each new blast. Children cried. Adults prayed or stared blankly at nothing. "Dad will find us," Ji said, holding her mother's hand. He promised he always would. Her mother just nodded, too afraid to speak. The last news reports before the power went out said that all space stations had been destroyed. There was little hope that anyone up there had survived. Ji closed her eyes. The strange buzzing in her head was stronger now. She could almost see the alien ships moving through the city, searching for something. Hunting. Suddenly, the tunnel shook more violently than before. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling. People screamed. "They're coming here," Jay whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Before her mother could respond, the wall at the end of the tunnel exploded inward. Through the dust and smoke, strange figures appeared, tall, with multiple limbs and glowing eyes. The aliens had found them. In the chaos that followed, Jay lost her grip on her mother's hand. She was pushed and pulled by the panicking crowd. She called out for her mother, but her small voice was lost in the screams. As the crowd carried her away from the aliens, Jay looked back one last time. She saw her mother standing still amid the chaos, facing the aliens. Then the crowd rushed around a corner, and her mother was gone. Jai was alone now, in a world that was being torn apart. 2 weeks after the aliens attacked, Earth was a different place. Cities lay in ruins. Millions were dead or missing. The invaders had set up bases across the planet, large metal structures that rose from the ground like giant insects. Captain Ta limped through the forest, his uniform torn and dirty. His escape pod had crashed in the mountains of North Korea. For days, he had walked south, hiding from alien patrols and eating whatever he could find. Now he watched from behind a tree as a group of people moved through an abandoned village. They carried weapons and moved with purpose. Not refugees then, fighters. Ta stepped out, hands raised. "I'm Captain Du Ta, Korean Space Force." The group turned, guns pointed at him. A woman stepped forward, her face hard with suspicion. "Prove it," she said. Ta slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his data drive. "I have information about the aliens' weapon systems. I need to get it to anyone still fighting." The woman studied him, then nodded. "I'm Min. We're with the resistance. Admiral Kim is gathering fighters in the south. We can take you there." Ta felt hope for the first time in weeks. If Kim was alive, there was still a chance. Deep in a mountain bunker, Admiral Kim stood before a map of Earth. Red marks showed alien bases. Blue marks showed human resistance groups. There were not enough blue marks. "Status report," she said to the room of tired soldiers and civilians. "We've established contact with groups in Japan, China, and Russia," said an officer. "America and Europe are struggling, but fighting back. Africa and South America report the aliens are mining there, stripping resources." Kim nodded grimly. "And our weapons development." A civilian stepped forward. He wore the simple clothes of an engineer, not a soldier. "I'm Sun. I've been working on something that might help." He placed a small device on the table. It looked like a mix of cell phone parts and computer pieces, all wired together. "It's an EMP device," Sun explained. "Electromagnetic pulse. It can shut down electronics. We tested it on some alien tech we salvaged. It worked for a short time." Kim picked up the device. It was crude, but if it worked. "How many can you make?" Sun smiled slightly. "With the right parts, hundreds, maybe thousands." For the first time in 2 weeks, Kim felt something like hope. In a small lab converted from a school classroom, Dr. Hannah Lee worked feverishly. Since escaping the university, she had gathered a team of scientists who had also survived the initial attack. "The patterns are consistent," she told them, pointing to her computer screen. "The alien ships emit specific electromagnetic frequencies when they communicate and when they fire weapons." "How does that help us?" asked a young scientist. "Every system has weaknesses," Hannah said. "If we can disrupt these frequencies, we might be able to interfere with their technology." She played a recording of the alien signals. The sound was like nothing on Earth, a mix of static and high-pitched whines that made everyone wince. "Their communication is both electronic and biological," Hannah explained. "It's like their ships are partly alive, and living things can get sick." In a refugee camp outside what used to be Busan, Jay sat alone, watching the sky. 2 weeks had passed since she lost her mother in the tunnel. She had been found by soldiers and brought to this camp with other children who had lost their families. "There's an alien patrol coming," she said quietly to no one. 5 minutes later, alarms sounded as lookouts spotted the approaching aliens. The camp erupted in panic as people rushed to hide. A soldier stared at G with wonder. "How did you know?" G shrugged. "I can feel them. In my head. I always know when they're close." The soldier knelt beside her. "Can you always tell where they are?" G nodded. "I see them in my dreams too. I know what they're looking for." The soldier looked at G with new interest. "Come with me. There's someone you need to meet." As they hurried away from the camp, G looked back at the sky. The buzzing in her head was getting stronger every day. The aliens were talking more now, planning something big. She didn't know if that was good or bad. She only knew that somehow she was part of it. "This is suicide," whispered Min as she crouched beside Captain Ta. They were hidden in the ruins of a building, watching an alien scout ship that had landed nearby. "Maybe," said Ta, "but we need to know more about them if we want to win this war." 5 more resistance fighters lay in position around the alien ship. They had tracked this smaller craft for days, waiting for it to land somewhere away from the main alien bases. Now was their chance. "Remember," Ta said into his radio, "we need at least one of them alive." He gave the signal. Sun's EMP device activated with a soft hum. The alien ship's lights flickered and went dark. "Now," shouted Ta. The team rushed forward. 2 aliens emerged from the ship, moving oddly as their tech suits malfunctioned. The resistance fighters fired special nets that wrapped around the aliens, trapping them. One alien broke free and charged at Min. Its skin was hard like stone, with a gray-green color. It had 4 arms and moved faster than any human. Tai jumped between them, firing his gun at the alien's legs. The creature fell, but kept coming, crawling with incredible strength. "The head," yelled Min. "Aim for the crystal in its head." Ta saw a small glowing crystal embedded in the alien's forehead. He fired once. The crystal shattered, and the alien stopped moving. The second alien was successfully captured. As they secured their prisoner, Ta looked at Min with new respect. "How did you know about the crystal?" Min's face darkened. "I've killed one before, up close. It was trying to take my brother." In Admiral Kim's mountain base, Dr. Hannah examined the captured alien. It was secured to a table, the crystal in its head covered by a special box that blocked its signals. "Fascinating," she said. "Their bodies are partly silicon-based, not carbon like us. And these crystals seem to be both a communication device and part of their nervous system." Admiral Kim watched from a distance. "Can it understand us?" "I don't think they communicate with sound at all," said Hannah. "It's all electrical signals through those crystals, like a living radio." Captain Tai, who had returned with the captured alien, looked at the strange being. "What are they called? What do they want?" Hannah pointed to markings on the alien's armor. "We found this symbol repeated in their communications. We think they call themselves the Voth. As for what they want," she pulled up images of alien mining operations. "They're taking our metals, water, and biological matter. We're just in their way." Supreme Commander Krall smashed his fist against the control panel. "How is this happening?" "They're primitives." His second-in-command stepped back cautiously. "The humans are adapting faster than expected, Commander. They've learned to block our signals in some areas. They've even captured some of our scouts." "Impossible," roared Krall. "We conquered 12 worlds more advanced than this one. These humans," the officer hesitated, "they don't fight like the others. They hide, then strike in small groups. They use our technology against us, and some of them seem to sense our presence." Krall turned to the viewing screen, watching Earth's surface. "Increase the harvesting. Strip this world faster. I want to be done with this place." Engineer Sun worked day and night in his workshop. The captured alien ship provided new insights into their technology. "Their power systems are incredible," he told Admiral Kim, "but they rely completely on their crystals for control." He held up an improved EMP device. "This new version should work better, last longer." Kim nodded. "How many have you made?" 50 so far. With the parts we salvage, we can make hundreds more." "Good," said Kim, "because Captain Tai is planning something big." Jai sat quietly as Dr. Hannah placed sensors on her head. Since being brought to the mountain base, Jai had undergone many tests. "Just relax," said Hannah gently. "I'm going to show you some pictures of the alien symbols. Tell me if you feel anything." As the images appeared on the screen, Jia felt the familiar buzzing in her head grow stronger. "This one," she said, pointing to a strange spiral shape. "They're using it a lot today. They're talking about a place." She closed her eyes. "A big place with many ships." They're afraid of something. Hannah looked at Captain Ta, who was watching from the doorway. She's reading their communications, Ta said in amazement. How is that possible? Hannah shook her head. I don't know, but if she can understand them, then we finally have an advantage, finished Ta. Admiral Kim stood before a room full of resistance leaders. Maps and screens covered the walls, showing alien bases across the world. 1 month had passed since the invasion began. The time for just surviving is over, she said, her voice strong and clear. Today, we start taking our planet back. She nodded to Captain Tai, who stepped forward. We call it Operation Thunderclap, he said. A coordinated global attack using our new weapons. On the main screen, Sun showed a diagram of his improved EMP device. We've made over 500 of these now. They can shut down VOF technology for up to 15 minutes. 15 minutes is not long, said a resistance leader from Japan. It's long enough, replied Ta. Because we're not just shutting down their tech. We're going to board their ships. Murmurs filled the room. Board alien ships? It seemed impossible. Dr. Hannah stepped forward next. We've also discovered something else. She held up a small spray bottle. The VOF are highly sensitive to certain Earth bacteria. This won't kill them, but it will make them sick and confused. And we have one more advantage, said Admiral Kim. She motioned to Ji, who now stood beside her. The young girl looked nervous but determined. Ji can sense the VOF's communications, Kim explained. She's been helping us predict their movements and understand their plans. They're planning something big, Ji said quietly. A final attack to end all resistance. They want to be done with Earth in 1 week. The room fell silent as the leaders took in this news. Then we strike first, said Admiral Kim. Tomorrow. Captain Ta trained the boarding teams day and night. Each team carried Sun's EMP devices, Hannah's bacterial sprays, and modified weapons designed to target the crystals in the VOF's heads. Move fast. Stay together, Ta told them. Once inside, head for the control room. The ships are partly alive, so they'll try to stop you in strange ways. Min, now Ta's second in command, distributed small earpieces. These will let you hear Ji's warnings. When she says move, you move. No questions. Some of the fighters looked doubtful about taking orders from a child, but they took the earpieces anyway. In his workshop, Sun prepared the final batch of EMP devices. His hands were tired, his eyes red from lack of sleep, but he kept working. A young assistant brought him tea. You should rest. Sun shook his head. Not yet. Not until it's done. He looked at the pile of devices ready to be sent out across the world. So simple, made from common parts found in old electronics, yet they were now humanity's best hope. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best, he said, more to himself than to his assistant. Jai sat in a quiet room, her eyes closed. Dr. Hannah monitored her brain activity on a screen. Their big ships are moving, Ji said suddenly. They're getting ready for something. Hannah typed quickly, sending the information to Admiral Kim. Can you tell what they're planning? Ji's face tightened with concentration. They want to burn the forests. All of them. To flush out the resistance. Her eyes opened, filled with tears. They're going to kill everything. Hannah put her arm around the girl's shoulders. Not if we stop them first. On his command ship, Supreme Commander Krull prepared the final assault. The frustrating resistance of the humans had delayed his harvest schedule. The High Command was not pleased. Begin the clearing burns tomorrow, he ordered. I want this planet secure in 7 rotations. His communication crystal pulsed with an incoming message. Krull expected acknowledgement of his orders. Instead, a strange sensation washed over him. Something was probing the VOF network. Something human. Impossible. Humans couldn't access VOF communications. Yet for a brief moment, Krull felt as if someone was watching him through his own crystal. Admiral Kim addressed the resistance one last time before they departed for their missions. Tomorrow, the VOF will learn that humanity is not so easily conquered, she said. They came to our home, killed our people, and thought we would simply die. They were wrong. She looked at the determined faces before her, soldiers and civilians, young and old, from countries that once fought each other, now united against a common enemy. Operation Thunderclap begins at dawn. For Earth. The crowd responded as one voice. For Earth. As they dispersed to their positions, Captain Tai approached Kim. "Do you think we can really win this?" he asked quietly. Kim looked at him steadily. "I think we can show them that taking Earth was the biggest mistake they ever made." Dawn broke across the world. In hidden bases on every continent, resistance fighters prepared for battle. This was the day humanity would fight back. Captain Tai checked his team one last time. 10 brave men and women, armed with weapons that would have seemed like toys against the Voth just a few weeks ago. Now, they were deadly. "Remember," he told them, "hit the EMPs first, then move fast. 15 minutes to get in, find the control center, and plant Hannah's bacteria bombs." Min handed out the small bottles of bacterial spray. One spray will make a Voth sick within seconds. Use it only if you have to. Tay's radio crackled. Admiral Kim's voice came through. "All teams, prepare for Thunderclap. Launch in 5 minutes." Ju's voice followed, small but sure. "The big ship above Seoul is changing its guard now. The left side will be weak." Ta nodded to his team. "That's our target. Let's move." Around the world, at exactly the same time, hundreds of EMP devices activated. The effect was immediate. Voth ships large and small suddenly lost power. Their lights flickered and died. Their weapons fell silent. In Korea, Captain Ta's team rushed toward their target, a Voth destroyer hovering above the ruins of Seoul. As Jai had predicted, the left side had fewer guards. And now, those guards were confused as their tech suits failed. "Go, go, go," shouted Ta. They ran up the landing ramp that had automatically extended when the ship lost power. Inside, emergency lights cast a dim purple glow. The air was thick and smelled like metal and something organic. "This way," said Min, following the map they had made from Ju's descriptions. They moved quickly through the strange corridors. Twice they encountered Voth guards, but the aliens were slow without their powered suits. The bacterial spray worked just as Hannah had promised. One burst, and the aliens fell back, coughing and disoriented. 8 minutes left, warned Ta, checking his watch. In Japan, another team successfully boarded a Voth mining ship. They planted bacteria bombs in the air system and downloaded data from the ship's memory banks. In America, resistance fighters attacked the largest Voth base on the continent. Sun himself led this team, carrying special devices designed to capture the aliens' crystal technology. In Africa, Europe, and Australia, similar strikes happened at the same moment. For the first time since the invasion, the Voth were not hunting humans. Humans were hunting them. Jai sat with Dr. Hannah in the command center, her eyes closed in concentration. "They're confused," she said. "Their network is breaking apart. They can't talk to each other." Admiral Kim watched the global map as green lights indicated successful strikes. "It's working," she said softly. "We're actually doing it." Jai suddenly gasped. "The big commander, Krull, he's angry. He's calling for help from orbit. More ships are coming." Kim grabbed her radio. "All teams, be advised. Reinforcements incoming. Complete your objectives and get out." Captain Tai and his team reached the destroyer's control center. 2 minutes remained before the EMP would wear off. "Plant the bombs," he ordered as they secured the room. Min quickly placed bacteria bombs at key points. Another team member downloaded chip data. The control room was strange. Part machine, part living tissue. The walls pulsed like a heart. Glowing crystals, similar to the ones in the Voth's heads, were embedded throughout. "Look at this," said Min, pointing to a large crystal in the center. "It's like the brain of the ship." Ta studied it. "Take it." Min carefully cut the crystal free. As she did, The ship seemed to shudder. "Time's up," shouted Ta. "Move out." They ran for the exit, the crystal secured in Min's pack. Behind them, lights began to flicker back on. The ship was waking up. Supreme Commander Krall roared with rage as reports flooded in. Humans had boarded ships across the planet. They had stolen data, damaged systems, and somehow made his warriors sick. "How is this possible?" he demanded. They were primitive. His second-in-command couldn't answer. He was too busy coughing, the strange human bacteria already spreading through the command ship. Krall felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The High Command had said this would be an easy harvest world, but these humans fought differently than any species they had encountered. "Bring the orbital fleet," he commanded. "All of it. We will end this resistance today." Back at the mountain base, Captain Taz's team returned triumphant. Similar reports came in from around the world. Admiral Kim smiled for the first time in weeks. "We hurt them today," she told Ta. "For the first time, we really hurt them." The sky turned dark as hundreds of Voth ships entered Earth's atmosphere. These weren't the smaller craft humans had faced before. These were massive warships, each one larger than a city. In the mountain base, alarms blared as sensors detected the new threat. "They've brought their entire fleet," said Admiral Kim, her face grim as she studied the readings. "This is their full force." Dr. Hanna rushed in with new data. "The Voth have adapted already. They've changed their ship's frequencies. Our EMPs won't work anymore." Captain Ta slammed his fist on the table. "Then we need new weapons. Son, can you?" The mountain shook violently, cutting off his words. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They'd found us," someone shouted. Another blast hit, stronger than the first. Part of the ceiling collapsed. "Evacuate," ordered Admiral Kim. "Everyone to the backup locations." As people rushed to gather essential equipment and data, a third blast struck directly above the command center. Steel beams fell. One struck Admiral Kim, pinning her to the ground. Tai and Min rushed to help her. Blood soaked through Kim's uniform. "Leave me," she gasped. "Save the others." "Not happening," said Tai, as he and Min worked to free her. Across the world, the Voth counterattack was swift and brutal. The resistance bases that had celebrated victory just hours before were now being systematically destroyed. The humans' new tactics no longer surprised the Voth. The aliens had adapted, changing their communication systems and shielding their ships against EMP bursts. In his workshop, which shook with nearby explosions, Sun worked frantically to modify his devices. "Their frequency changes every few minutes now," he told his assistant as he soldered wires. "We need something that can adapt too." He looked at the pile of broken electronics on his table. So many dead devices, but maybe, just maybe, there was still a way to use them. Captain Ta found himself in the worst situation possible. His team had boarded a Voth mothership to plant explosives, but the ship had suddenly taken off, heading for orbit. "We're trapped," said Min as they hid in a storage room. "They'll find us soon." Tai checked their weapons and remaining supplies. They had enough explosives to do serious damage, but no way to escape after detonating them. "We always knew this might be a one-way mission," he said quietly. Min nodded, her face resolute. "So we make it count." Dr. Hanna worked in a small underground lab, one of several backup locations the Resistance had prepared. Her hands moved quickly as she studied the Voth crystal they had captured. "It's more than just communication," she told her team. "These crystals connect to the Voth on a deeper level, almost like music." She connected the crystal to a sound analyzer. Strange patterns appeared on the screen. "Look at these wavelengths," she said. "They're like sound waves, but different. What if we could disrupt them with our own sounds?" An idea began to form in her mind. Not just EMP to disable their technology, but sound to disable the Voth themselves. In a small cabin hidden deep in the forest, she lay unconscious. After collapsing at the base, she had been evacuated with the most critical personnel. Now she was in a coma-like state, her mind overwhelmed by the surge in Voth communications. A doctor monitored her vital signs, which flashed on a small screen. Her brain activity is off the charts, he told the guard watching over her. It's like she's processing a huge amount of information. Inside Ji's mind, something extraordinary was happening. The barrier between her consciousness and the Voth network was breaking down. She wasn't just receiving their communications anymore. She was moving through them, like walking through rooms in a strange house. She could see their plans, feel their thoughts. And deeper still, she sensed something else. Fear. The Voth were afraid. Not just of losing this battle, but of something humans represented that they didn't understand. Supreme Commander Krull stood before a massive weapon control panel. On the screen before him, Earth turned slowly. "Begin preparations for planetary cleansing," he ordered. "If we cannot harvest this world efficiently, we will sterilize it and harvest the remains." His second-in-command looked alarmed. "Supreme Commander, the High Command ordered this world taken intact." Krull's eyes narrowed. "The High Command did not face these humans. I will not lose more warriors to these vermin." He activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting to all Voth vessels. "This is Supreme Commander Krull. We will end this resistance once and for all. Prepare planet killers for firing sequence. Earth dies in 24 hours. Admiral Kim lay on a makeshift hospital bed, her breathing shallow. Despite her injuries, she insisted on continuing to lead. "Status report," she demanded weakly. The resistance officer looked grim. "Not good. The Voth have destroyed most of our bases. Their ships are everywhere. And we just intercepted a message about planet killers." Planet killers. Kim tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "Weapons that could destroy all life on Earth. They're giving us 24 hours. Kim closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, there was steel in her gaze. "Get me all remaining resistance leaders on the radio. And find Captain Ta. We need everyone for what comes next." Deep within the Voth mothership, Captain Tai and Min crawled through narrow maintenance tunnels. They had studied the ship layouts from the data they stole earlier. Now, they were headed for the heart of the vessel. "The main power core should be ahead," whispered Tai, checking the small digital map. They reached a junction and peered down into a vast chamber. Glowing crystals larger than houses pulsed with energy. Voth engineers moved around the room, tending to the crystals. "That's it," said Min. "If we plant our explosives there, we could take out the whole ship." Ta nodded, but his face was troubled. "Even if we succeed, we won't survive the blast." Min's hand found his in the darkness. "I know, but we'll save many others." As they prepared their explosives, Ta thought of his daughter Ji. He would never see her again, but perhaps his sacrifice would give her a future. In the hidden cabin, Ji suddenly sat up, gasping for air. The doctor jumped in surprise. "She's awake," he called out. Ji's eyes were wide, seeing things no one else could see. "I was there," she said. "Inside their network. I saw everything." Dr. Hannah rushed into the room. "Ji, what did you see?" "The ships, the weapons. I know how they work now." Ji looked directly at Hannah. "And I know how to stop them. But I need to talk to everyone at once." Engineer Sun had not slept in days. His workshop was now a mobile lab in the back of a truck, bouncing along forest roads to avoid detection. He held up his newest creation, a device that looked like a small satellite dish attached to a modified sound system. "It's ready," he told his team. "If Dr. Hannah is right about the sound frequencies, this could disrupt their entire network." His radio crackled. "Sun, this is base. Emergency meeting. Admiral Kim and Ji need to speak with you." Within an hour, all remaining resistance leaders were connected via a secure radio network. Admiral Kim spoke first, her voice weak but determined. "We have less than 20 hours before the Voth activate their planet killers. This is our final stand." Dr. Hannah explained her discovery about the sound frequencies. "The Voth and their ships are connected through these crystal networks. If we can broadcast the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt them all at once. I've built devices that can do that, said Sun. But we need to place them at key points around the world and activate them simultaneously. Chai spoke next, her young voice stronger than anyone expected. That's not all. I can do more than just listen to them now. I can send messages back. I can make them hear us. There was silence as everyone took in this information. Then Admiral Kim outlined the plan. She called it Operation Harmony. Sun's devices will broadcast the disruptive frequency. Captain Tai, if you can hear us, your mission is to sabotage the mothership from within. Dr. Hannah's team will release the enhanced bacteria into the upper atmosphere, and Jay will project into their network to create confusion. And if we fail, someone asked. Then we fail together, fighting for our world, Kim replied simply. On the Voth command ship, Supreme Commander Krell supervised the preparations for Earth's destruction. 6 massive weapons had been positioned around the planet. Firing sequence is at 20% charge, reported an officer. Krell nodded with satisfaction. Soon this troublesome world would be nothing but dust and raw materials. Suddenly, a strange sensation washed over him. A voice seemed to speak directly through his crystal. "We know what you're doing," said the voice. It sounded like a human child. "And we're coming for you." Krell shook his head, trying to clear it. "Impossible," he muttered. But for the first time in his long life, he felt something new. Fear of prey that refused to be hunted. The final hour approached. Around the world, the remaining resistance fighters moved into position, carrying Sun's devices. Dr. Hannah's team prepared special planes to release bacteria into the high atmosphere. And in the small cabin, Jay sat with her eyes closed, her mind reaching out across the Voth network. Admiral Kim, watching from her bed, gave the order. Operation Harmony begins now. Captain Tai and Min fought their way through the Voth mothership. They had been discovered, and now alien guards chased them through the corridors. "The command center is just ahead," gasped Ta as they rounded a corner. A blast hit the wall beside them. Min fired back, hitting a Voth guard directly in its crystal. The alien fell. "We're almost out of ammo," she warned. They reached a massive door, the entrance to the mothership's command center. Ta placed their last explosive on the lock. "Stand back." The explosion blew the door open. Ta and Min rushed in, finding themselves face to face with dozens of Voth officers. At the center stood a larger alien with special markings. "Supreme Commander Krell," whispered Min, recognizing him from Ji's descriptions. Krell turned, his 4 arms reaching for weapons. "Humans," he hissed. "On my ship." Engineer Sun activated his master device. Across the world, resistance fighters did the same with their units. "Broadcasting now," Sun shouted into his radio. A high-pitched sound, just at the edge of human hearing, began to emanate from the devices. The sound would be meaningless to humans, but to the crystal network of the Voth, it was like screaming directly into their brains. In the skies above Earth, Dr. Hannah's planes released clouds of microscopic bacteria. The wind carried them up to the Voth ships. The aliens had adapted to the first bacteria, but this new strain was different, designed to target the biological components of their ships directly. "Bacterial release complete," Hannah reported. "Now we wait." In her cabin, Ji's body went rigid. Her mind fully entered the Voth network. She could see it all now. Every ship, every Voth, every crystal pulsing with information. And she could change that information. Ji began to plant false images and commands throughout the network. Voth ships received orders to change course. Weapons systems showed phantom human attackers. And through it all, she repeated one message directly into the minds of every Voth. "Earth is not yours to take." On the mothership, Captain Ta faced Supreme Commander Krell. The alien was twice his size, with armor that glowed with power. "Your planet dies today," Krell said, raising a weapon. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. The sound from Sun's devices reached the mothership. Krall and the other Voth grabbed their heads in pain. The crystals in their foreheads flickered. Tai seized the moment. He lunged forward, tackling Krall to the ground. Min rushed to the main control panel, planting explosives. The firing sequence. Ta shouted, "Stop it!" Min worked frantically at the controls. "I can't figure it out. It's all in their language." Across the Voth fleet, ships began to malfunction. The bacteria spread through their systems, attacking the living parts of the vessels. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. And in every Voth mind, Chi's voice spoke, showing images of human courage, human love, and human determination. She showed them Captain Tai, fighting to save his daughter. Admiral Kim, leading despite her wounds. Dr. Hana and Sun, creating new technologies from scraps. The combined assault, sound disruption, biological attack, and psychic interference created chaos throughout the Voth fleet. In the command center, Krall threw Tai off and staggered to his feet, but the Supreme Commander was weakening. The sound hurt his crystal. The bacteria made his ship respond slowly, and strange images filled his mind. "What are you doing to us?" he demanded. "Showing you why you should never have come here," Tai replied. The ship lurched violently. Warning lights flashed everywhere. "The planet killers are at 95%, Min called out. "We can't stop them." Krall looked at the humans who had fought their way to his command center. For the first time, he saw them not as prey but as warriors. "Enough," he said suddenly. His voice carried across the room. End firing sequence. The control panels went dark. The charging stopped. Tai stared in disbelief. "Why?" Krall touched his crystal, which was cracked and fading. "Your kind fights like none we have ever faced. This world costs too much to take." On Earth, resistance fighters watched in amazement as the Voth fleet began to withdraw. Ship after ship lifted back to orbit. In her cabin, Jai opened her eyes, smiling. "They're leaving," she whispered. "They're afraid of us now." Admiral Kim received the reports with tears in her eyes. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it."